Welcome to Changing the Game, where bold leaders, rule breakers, and trailblazers drop the playbook and share how they lead, win, and shake things up. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Magerman, a seasoned marketing and brand strategy leader who's helped some of the world's most recognizable consumer brands connect with audiences in fresh and authentic ways. A former field hockey standout at the University of North Carolina, Rachel brings the same drive and creativity she had on the field into the world of storytelling, leadership, and brand building. She's held high-level roles across top agencies leading legacy CPG brands and founded Hockey for the House, a charity event that benefits Ronald McDonald House Charities. We'll talk about the lessons sport taught her about leading teams, building trust, and staying grounded through change, and how she continues to change the game in her career and life. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be
I'm
here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Just for awareness for everyone listening, Rachel and I met through Work Like a Girl, which is
Yes.
a community of women professionals started by Erica, former Barstool CEO. And it's been like a wonderful community to connect with you and others. And it couldn't be better.
Yeah, it's great. And then we found out we're both also in the post together.
Yes, the Post, that is a great community. I am such a big fan of the Post and all the amazing people that I've met through the Post. Um, I've had a bunch of them on the show. So I
Yeah,
feel like I should just go through the Post roster of all the amazing professionals there.
exactly.
I love it. No, Rachel, you have such a cool story and I'm really excited to get into it. And I'm really curious to hear your take on this. You won a national championship at North Carolina. What was that experience like?
It was one of the best days of my life. I will say that. To be honest, I feel like it was such a blur, like all the excitement and celebration. We actually ended up winning when I was a freshman. So I don't really think I had an appreciation for like how rare it was. I just thought like, well, if you work hard and you're good, you just win a national championship, you know. And then, the subsequent 3 years I was at UNC, we made it to the national championship game and lost the next 3 years in a row. So I think
Oh my
that
God.
really gave me kind of perspective on, you know, that it's actually really rare and it's very difficult to do. Um, and all of those experiences were phenomenal. And I think, celebrate the wins and learn from the times you don't win is was kind of my takeaway from it all.
Wow, that's great. So you had 4 years and you went to the national championship game all 4 years. That is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, no, it was great. I wish we had a few more. I think everyone did. There were a few times we got close, but yeah, it was a great experience. And, the teams were obviously phenomenal, all the years I was there. So,
Yeah, that's so cool. What led you to play field hockey? What was your life like growing up? What put you on that path?
so my mom was a field hockey coach. So naturally, that was kind of where I started. I grew up in Philadelphia and it's a massive sport on the East Coast. I recently lived in Chicago for the past 3 years and I told people I played field hockey and they were like, what is that? Is it not on ice, but it's played like ice hockey? I was like, not
Yeah,
entirely. Um, but yeah, so I started playing from a young age. All my friends played too, and that really became kind of my grounding in community.
yeah, that's so funny you say that your friends in Chicago didn't know what it was. I'm from Minnesota, so very Midwest. I went to college for 1 year at Central Michigan and we had a field hockey team.
Hmm.
And I'd never heard of the sport before. I was
Yeah,
like, what is this? Like, it's cool.
yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's like crazy to me because like on the East Coast, it's like one of the biggest sports for females, but like it's not really a thing in the Midwest. I think in terms of universities that have it on the West Coast, it's only Berkeley and Stanford. So they got to
Wow.
figure out more ways to grow the game nationally.
Yeah. What was it like having your mom as your coach too? Or was she not your coach, but I guess what was it like having a mom who coached the sport that you played?
Yeah. Um, she was my coach when I was younger. I would say it was nice to have her there in the best of instances. I think other times we definitely got into it a little bit. Um, you know, I think her being a field hockey player, her being a coach, kind of, she knew what I was going through, right? I think she could give me tips and tricks on different things. But yeah, it was an interesting experience.
I'm sure, like, just having your parent as your coach, there's gotta be maybe some boundaries set, but also, like, a lot of appreciation towards, like, their coaching at times. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean, luckily she wasn't my coach in high school.
Yeah.
She coached the freshman team, and I was fortunate enough I made the varsity as a freshman, so we never overlapped in that regard. Um, but I think as I got older, it would have certainly been challenging if she maintained being my coach.
Yeah, for sure. When you were in college then, playing your sport, were you focused on kinda life beyond the uniform, or are you just like, "I'm an athlete right now, this is my identity?" Kind of what was your mindset like in college and maybe when you were starting to make that transition out?
Yeah, it's funny. I went to a high school that was really focused on sports. So I think, out of the 120 kids in my graduating class, 20 of them went Division 1 in something. So,
Wow.
yeah. So like sports were always a big part of my identity. Like I think like I was very singular in terms of like this is my identity, so to speak, right? And so I think college was the first time I started exploring other areas and things I was interested in. I think about it in terms of like my one identity was an athlete, and there was this other side that like nobody really knew about, that I like was very creative, and I like to write poetry. Not that I would have admitted that to anyone in high school. Like and paint and other things. And so you know going into college, I became an advertising major, and so coming out of school, it kind of really allowed me to explore a different side of myself and challenge myself in new ways that I hadn't before, but I'd always had an interest in.
That's really cool that you had those creative skills or interests and you found a way to apply them. I think so many athletes go through this like, well, my only hobby is my sport. Like I actually said that to someone the other day. I was like, I didn't have any hobbies in college. Like,
Yeah.
and I look back on that time and I'm like, wow, that would have been beneficial for someone to be like, you need to make time for a hobby, or have you thought about exploring this? Or just telling, I don't need anyone else, I guess, but like just telling myself I should have done a little bit more self exploration at that time. So
Yeah.
that's cool that you were able to, like, you knew that you're like, "I love this creative side, and now I get to go apply it to a career."
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like I wasn't applying it in college, right? Like I was going to school, I was playing field hockey. I coached field hockey during my time at university too. But it was always just this like kind of burning desire, right? Of like expressing creative muscles. And I think, the role that I ended up going into and doing for a long part of my career is, account management. So you're kind of the internal business lead. So I think all the skills that help me in sports of, communication, being collaborative, being tenacious, I get to apply that in a creative setting and work with people all the time that are coming up with TV commercials or like brand acts. So I think I kind of get to combine both sides of my personality in a nice way.
Yeah, I feel like somebody listening right now might really benefit for to get an understanding of your career journey. You obviously had this creative side, you were an advertising major, you went into account management and got to apply a lot of these skills. What was your career journey like, and, how did you get your foot in the door in this space?
Yeah. So I was interested in advertising. That's what I studied. I didn't know a single person, no family members, no friends that worked in the advertising or marketing space. My mom was a personal trainer. My dad worked in finance. So coming out of college, I hadn't had any internships. I was like, I don't really know where to start, right? Like, I don't know anyone that I can talk to. I think I want to do this thing, but like, how do you ever really know? And so, you know, I got put in contact with a couple recruiters, and they were actually in the finance space. So like I was set up on interviews at like Morgan Stanley and like, all these banks. And I was like, I didn't even like study finance. Like why? But it's like, oh, well, you're an athlete. They like athletes. And so she's like, I have this one person I know that works for this B2B advertising agency and they're looking for someone to work in their media department. Like, are you interested? And I was like, yes. And this had already been a few months of, I was living with my parents in Philadelphia. I knew I wanted to live in New York City. So I was like training back and forth for interviews. And so it was a few months of that. And so I interviewed, I hit it off with the person who ended up being my boss. And from there, I started in media, which is very numbers heavy. I'm not really a numbers person. And so I think they kind of identified after probably 8 months in that role, they're like, based on your skill set, you're a relationship person. We think you'd be better served in an account management role. And so once they transitioned me to that, where you're kind of, collaborating and leading teams, at that level, I wasn't leading teams yet, but working on strategy and the creative process and production, that's where I really found my niche. And just, started elevating from there. And then about 6 years into my career, I wanted to make a pivot to working on consumer brands. I'd been working on B2B for a while. And so I moved to an agency called FCB, where, I was there for 7 years across multiple offices, leading several different accounts, like you mentioned, like Clorox and Kimberly Clark were kind of the last ones where I was more in a leadership capacity.
Yeah, thank you for giving us a walkthrough of your career trajectory. I think there's so many amazing points of your story. Like, you took the conversations with people to get your foot in the door. I think that's so powerful. Like, all of us don't know what we want to do when we leave school, but you were like, yeah, I'll take the conversations in finance, even though I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what this is going to lead to. But it ended up leading or putting you on a path to success because you were open about what you were looking for and you were open to conversations. I think that's really powerful. And then also you said it at one point, I was going to ask you how many years into your career was it? You said 6 years into your career, you were able to pivot a little bit. And I just think that, I guess looking at my career, I'm I feel really early in my career. And so many people are like in that early spot in their career. They want to learn, they want to grow, they want leadership roles, but it's kind of a marathon, is I guess the point
Yeah.
I'm getting at. Is it's not a sprint, it is a marathon. So I guess how did you stay in the moment and learn as much as you could in each individual role? Was it something that you had to really like focus on, or was it just kind of easy to you and you're like, I'm just here to learn?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is you feel this, particularly as an athlete, right? Like you feel this expectation and pressure that you should walk in day one and know exactly what you're doing, right? And
Yeah.
I think a big part of, growth is admitting what you don't know, right? It's not to say that you won't figure things out on your own, but if someone's asking you to do something and you're like, I have literally never done this before, actually saying that, right? I mean, I think that helps a lot when you're honest and vulnerable in that way, because then you're kind of level setting on expectations, and then you actually end up learning more because they're like, oh my gosh, you've never done a TV commercial, like let me take you through the process. Whereas like if you wouldn't have it, if I would have admitted those things, it probably would have taken me longer to figure it out, or I couldn't have stood out as much because I was trying to figure it out at the same time that no one knew that I was trying to figure it out at the same time as
Yeah.
leading teams. So
Yeah, it's like putting the ego aside a little bit. Like, I actually don't know this. I think that is really hard for athletes to do, or just high achievers in general, because it's like, especially when you're competing at the D1 level and at the top of your game, you're like, it's hard to be a beginner again.
yeah, and
Yeah,
and
really.
and
Sorry, go on.
yeah, I was gonna say, funnily enough, I'm actually in a transitional point right now in my career where I was at this agency I loved. I had this amazing boss who I respected. She's still a mentor, but I just felt like I was getting a bit comfortable. Right, I was working on different clients and different projects, but I felt like I knew what I was doing on a day to day basis and I wasn't challenging myself as much as I wanted. And I started to think about, what am I passionate about? Like what will give me meaning and purpose? So I stepped away from my agency and I'm now kind of in the role that I was not fully, when I graduated college, of talking to a bunch of people, taking different interviews and conversations, figuring out, what do I want to do next and what's kind of the next chapter for me. So I think when you get out of college, you kind of think, how do all these people have jobs? How do they know what they're going to do? Like nobody knows, even like 12 years into my career, I'm still figuring it out.
I think that's really comforting, Rachel, honestly, because you have had such a successful career so far. And you probably, and I don't want to speak for you, but it feels the energy you're giving is like, you're like, I'm still in it. Like I'm still figuring it out. I feel like you're like in your prime and you're like, I gotta figure out what's next for me. And so everyone kind of takes those pauses and pivots and needs a minute to think about what's next for them. And I think it takes a lot of courage to do that when you've been doing something for so long.
Thank you. Yeah. When I originally told my parents, they were like, bold move, really? He's like, I know, but like you listen, you, you gotta chart your own course, right? And I think it's important to challenge the status quo. And if you want to make a change, have the courage to take a leap of faith and have confidence in yourself that you will figure it out and you will be successful. I think it's a mentality as much as it is skills to be able to do those things.
Yeah, you got to bet on yourself. I fully believe that, especially if you're, and not saying that you weren't happy with what you were doing, but you wanted a bigger challenge. And I think a lot of people sit in roles where maybe they're not happy, but it's comfortable, or it's, it pays the bills. It
Right.
seems scary to take the leap, like you said. And I'm with you. I think it's like if it's not a hell yes at the end of the day, it's got to be something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing advice, excuse me. And you mentioned you had a mentor that you still are really connected with, and now you're kind of building these networks and relationships in real time again. What's that experience been like for you, kind of having these new conversations? And how would you encourage somebody else who's like, I need to build a network. I don't know where to start. What should they do?
Yeah, I mean, I can say I had no idea where to start, right? So I'd been at the same agency across a few offices, but for 7 years. So, during that time, I was very focused on my work, focusing on making connections with the clients that I had and the internal relationships. But beyond that, I would say my network was pretty small. So, I ended up joining this community called The Post, which I know we chatted about a bit earlier. Um, because I wanted to meet more people, for one. For two, working in advertising, there really aren't a lot of former athletes, so I kind of started to miss that side of myself and being around people that had a similar mentality to me. um and so I joined the Post, which they do great programming. They're about connections. They connect athletes that are business leaders, and I met just like a ton of people, and everyone was so happy and eager to help one another. And I think that kind of taught me that, like, you know what, you get out what you put in to networking, right? If you are willing to help people and you reach out and say, like, hey, I'd love to talk to you, maybe you won't hear back all the time, but the ones you do, right, those conversations are so valuable and meaningful. So that was really my starting point. And then from there, I found out about Work Like a Girl. I joined that network, right? I think I'm in like 5 different networks now. And all of them are slightly different. And I just met great people from it. And it's led to, potential opportunities, or having conversations and exploring, would I want to work in the sports world? Do I think I'd want to work in-house for a brand on the consumer side? And it's just given me the ability to kind of figure out what's next just through connections.
Yeah. I think you made a really good point that, not everyone's always going to respond, but the ones that do, like, they're going to be so open. And that's how I felt about connecting with you, honestly, Rachel. I mean, I just hit you with the DM on Work Like a Girl community, and, and you responded. And I'm always so grateful when people do respond, because it's a different type of energy when people are open to it, and you can't take it personally. Like, I think about the
Exactly.
amount of DMs that I send out because I'm like, you have such a cool background, I want to learn more about you, and some people don't respond, and that's okay. It's not personal. It's just like you just got to put yourself out there, and you kind of you'll attract the people that are open to it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I mean, as being former athletes, we're used to being resilient. So I think
yeah.
that 9 times out of 10, people might not respond, but one of them will respond, right? So it was worth sending the 10 to get the one response.
Exactly, because then we get to have conversations like this.
Yeah.
I think one thing you just mentioned, and you mentioned it in our previous conversation too, that there's not a lot of athletes in agency at agency work.
Yeah.
That really shocked me actually, because it feels like a hustle environment. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think that, while we were probably playing sports in college, I think a lot of them were honing their writing skills, right? Or learning InDesign or other design things at the same time. And so I have probably met, you know, my office was 800 people. I won't say that I knew all of them, but I probably knew relatively like half. I would say I met four athletes, and that was
Wow,
so most people didn't even know that I played sports in college. It just didn't come up. I didn't really tell them. Um, yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense though. It makes sense. Like if they were honing their craft while we were working on ours at the
yeah.
time. So no, that makes a lot of sense. What's like one campaign or project that really felt like this was exciting, or like you were changing the game in the industry? What was one thing that stands out to you?
Yeah, I will say I've been very fortunate to work on a lot of cool stuff. Two of them, I got to work with Allison Felix on a Clorox campaign. So seeing her run in real life when we were shooting her on camera was like, she was just so fast. I was like, she's gonna beat like, how are they gonna even be able to like get her on camera?
Yeah,
She's
on
moving so fast. Yeah.
camera.
Um, and then, there was one where we worked with the Dallas Cowboys and Emmett Smith, which was super cool. I think in terms of the one that stands out most to me as like we're somewhat changing the game and we're doing something different was I got put on Clorox to lead the Clorox account directly after the pandemic. So as you can imagine, Clorox was booming during the
Huge. Yeah.
pandemic. Yeah, everyone wanted their disinfecting wipes, rightfully so. And so, I was brought in to think about like where do we go from here as a brand? Like what do we stand for? Right? And so we did a ton of consumer research and research into like mental health and stuff, right? Coming out of the pandemic, like people were feeling such isolation. And so what we found was that one, people were looking for fresh starts and connect with people again. And that secondly, that clean environments actually help reduce anxiety, they increase your efficiency. And so we developed a campaign that wasn't just about like pushing, selling wipes and saying we kill 99.9% of germs, but it was really about talking about the duality of the physical and mental benefits of clean. That a clean space can lead to a blank slate, it can open up new possibilities. And so I felt like, that was really a powerful message at a time when people were looking for fresh starts.
Yeah, you really humanized the product and humanized the issue. Like it wasn't just about cleaning; it was about connection. And yeah, that's really cool. That is a game changer for sure.
Yeah. And we launched in Times Square, which was pretty fun.
You went to Times Square for
No, I
that?
said, yeah, we launched like a big
Oh,
billboard
like
in Times Square for it.
okay, that is cool. That is very cool.
Yeah.
I've never been to Times Square. I'm gonna be honest, but I can imagine.
What?
Yeah, I know. I've been to New York City, but I've never been to Times Square. So that's probably like a sin for ad agency marketers, right? Like,
I mean, I just think a sin in general, like you got to see
yeah,
it. Not that I think it's the best place in the world. I just think it's like, iconic. At some point in your life, you got to check it out.
you gotta, yeah, like check it off the list. Iconic.
Exactly.
Sure. I know I do need to go back. I do really like New York City, so I gotta make a trip back.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I want to actually change gears a little bit, kind of, not really, but I want to change gears and just talk about your Hockey for the House fundraiser event, because I think that's really cool. It has a lot of meaning. Can you just share with us what that's about and what inspired you to start that event?
Yeah. So Hockey for the House is an event we put on at my school, Germantown Academy, where we basically started a middle school field hockey tournament. And you would pay money to have your team entered in the tournament. The refs during the game were actually us high schoolers at the time. And it was a fundraiser to raise money for the Ronald McDonald House, excuse me, which helps families in need when their kids are suffering from medical challenges. I would love to tell you that this vision just came to me and that's how it originated. That is not true. Um, it was my friend Abby said, "Hey, I'm thinking I want to do something to kind of raise money for the Ronald McDonald House. Like, do you want to be involved?" And I was like, 100%, that sounds great. And so we developed this field hockey tournament called Hockey for the House. And I don't think either of us realized the impact it would have, or that it's almost been going on for 20 years now, that tournament. And so I think the lesson for me was kind of just like, sometimes when you lean in, you can, and you fully invest in something, like good things can come out of it. Like you can drive impact and find purpose from helping others.
Yeah, you have a really beautiful through line in your story, which is like you have purpose and intention behind, at least that's how it feels to me, that you have purpose and intention behind every every decision you've made in your career and every stop you've made along the way. It's really like, how can I make an impact? How can I lean in and learn something? And how can I be intentional with my career and what's next? So I just think that's really cool that you founded such a meaningful thing, especially so young too.
Yeah, we were juniors in high school the first year. We obviously had no idea what we were doing. Had to do a fundraiser, right? We're like, we're just gonna like buy. Or had our moms take us to Costco. We're like, we're gonna buy snacks. We're
Yeah.
gonna have like a snack stand. We're gonna ref this game ourselves. Um, and like somehow we got people to turn up and play and raise money. And then we did it again our senior year, and from there, our high school took it on as kind of an initiative they were going to keep doing every year.
Yeah, that's amazing. You said it's been going on for 20 years.
Yeah, almost 20 years. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Way to leave a legacy, especially in the sport.
Yeah, thank you. I aged myself by saying how long it's been going on, but yeah, it's almost been 20 years.
I know sometimes I'm like, it can't have been that long, like since I was done playing too, but no, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're getting up there
yeah.
for sure. So since your younger playing days, how has success, how do you define it? How has it changed for you, or is it the same?
It's very different. Um, I think, you know, in my playing days, and honestly, for the bulk of my career, my definition of success was to be the best, right? Be on the best teams, have accolades, keep going for the next promotion or working on the biggest accounts. And I think I used to pride myself on my ability to turn myself into a machine where I could just get up, eat, work a lot, sleep, and that was it, right? And I then a couple years ago I started to kind of interrogate that belief of like, why would you want to be a machine, right? Like you're missing out on this time with friends and family, and you're being so one-dimensional that you have this goal and nothing else matters but this goal. And it wasn't necessarily bringing me more purpose, joy, or fulfillment. And so I think my definition now of success is, to do something that you feel personally passionate about, that brings you purpose, and at the same time having connections and meaningful relationships, spending time with friends and family. Like those things are equally as important to your career.
Yeah. Do you think you were impacted by, I feel like when we were younger, hustle culture or like girl bossing was like very much a big thing.
Yeah.
Was you impacted by that, and kind of like what was the moment it switched for you, or like what made you think, take a step back and say like, wait, why do I want to be a machine? Like what caused that?
So to be honest, I a few years ago I was at a wedding. I fell, I hit my head, and I had a concussion. It was my
Oh
fifth
no.
concussion, and so I had a lot of post concussion symptoms. And at the same time, I was on a project working all the time, and I couldn't, like, I was having noise issues, visual issues, right, and all of these things. And so I called my boss. She knew what was happening. Um, And I was like, I went to the doctor and they're saying that I should take a month off of work to try and like figure this out. But like, I don't want to put you and the team in a bad position. Like, I know how much we have going on. And of course, she's the greatest person ever. She's the mentor I spoke of earlier. She's like, you are not working. I'm not letting you work. Like, you need to take care of your health. Like, there's nothing more important than that. This project will end. Like, other things will come up, but like, you can't jeopardize you getting better for this. And so I think during that time, for those who haven't had a concussion, you really can't do much, like the breathing bothers your head. There were complications with noise and visual challenges. And so I was thinking a lot during that time. And it made me just kind of think about like, it's kind of messed up that I was willing to jeopardize my health for work. And it took my boss being like, I'm not letting you do that for me to kind of stop.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you for sharing that. It's so honest and it's so vulnerable. And I'm grateful that you shared that story with us because like health is no joke. And I think our lives really do get put in perspective, the decisions that we're making when something like that happens to us, when you're forced to take a step back and say, what am I doing? And I think all of us are probably guilty of sacrificing our health or relationships towards an end goal or work. And it's so important to really reflect on what's important in life and keep that as our compass or our North Star.
Yeah. Which isn't to say that I don't still value the girl boss thing, but I think balance is needed. You can only put out your best in the work setting if you also have relationships and other things that get you going. You shouldn't just have work.
100%. Exactly. Like we're a spectrum. And I'm with you too. It's like, yes, there's times to sprint, there's times to hustle, but then you also need to like enjoy your life too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Way to do both for sure. Rachel, this has been such an awesome conversation with you. I have just, I guess, one more question because I know we're about at time. So I've been so grateful for your wisdom and sharing your journey with us. I always end the show with the same question. So what does changing the game mean to you, whether it's in your career or your personal life?
Yeah, for me, changing the game means, challenging the status quo. And having the courage to take risks, even if it goes against societal's expectations of what you should be doing or where you should be in your life. Because at the end of the day, it's your journey and there's no medal at the end of your life, right? When you died, it's like you did all these things. Like you have to value your life and take risks and just have the confidence that you can do anything you put your mind to.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rachel. That's awesome advice. Can our listeners connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yes, absolutely. You can find me at Rachel Magerman. Would love to connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
Yeah, this has been really fun. And I can't wait to see what you do next. So definitely keep in touch. We will update where you are next on our show description. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. But appreciate it so much, Rachel. And I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.